Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining Ceipal's webinar series, Winning Strategies for Staffing Businesses at Critical Times. For today's webinar, Ceipal on the coronavirus and the staffing industry, the mid to long-term impact, Ceipal will be joined by a number of distinguished industry experts. But before we introduce our speakers for today, there are just a few housekeeping items we want to cover. First, each webinar will be recorded and available on demand through Ceipal's website. A follow-up email will be sent to all registrants with the webinar recording, presentation, and any other relevant material. Second, we will have a Q&A session following this presentation. All participants have entered this webinar muted, so please enter your questions in the chat box below and we'll address them at the end. Thirdly, after the webinar, we will be releasing a brief survey on COVID-19's impact on the staffing industry. Your insight would be greatly appreciated, and we encourage you to complete the survey today. All participants are automatically entered into a raffle to win an Apple iPad as a way of saying thank you. Okay, so that takes care of our housekeeping items. It's now my great pleasure to welcome and introduce our panelists today. We're going to begin with Sati Deyraf. Sati Deyraf is currently the CIO of Randstad India. She has over 20 years experience in IT consulting services, and her career is paved with remarkable achievements in setting up new businesses, building strategic alliances, and nurturing customer relationships. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
Our second panelist is Yashab Giri, the Director and VP of Staffing at Randstad India. Yashab has over 20 years experience in the staffing industry with exposure to strategic planning, key account management, sales, and operations. Yashab has built businesses from inception onwards and has also revitalized businesses taking losses while remaining actively involved in strategic planning and implementation. Our third panelist is Vijay Sivaram. Vijay is a seasoned sales and consulting professional with 16+ years of experience in workforce management, technology staffing and services, and asset and facility services. As CEO of Quess Corp, he is responsible for driving growth by identifying talent and creating employability in the technology sector, overseeing business operations in the APAC region, and developing customer relationships and key vendor strategies. Kevin Grassa, our panelist, is the CEO of Whitridge Associates, and he has the goal of being the best provider of subject matter experts, exemplified in his nearly 30 years experience meeting customers' demand for recruiting support at Whitridge. Kevin founded Whitridge Associates in 1991 and has since dedicated his career to providing quality service to the staffing industry. And our final panelist today is Mark Finicherio. Mark has nearly 20 years experience in the staffing industry and currently serves as the Chief Operating Officer of the Massachusetts-based Softworld Inc. Softworld is recognized as one of the fastest growing firms in the US, recently surpassing 100 million in annual revenue. Mark leads all aspects of Softworld's internal operations and is the architect of their highly successful delivery model. It's also my great pleasure to introduce our moderator for today, Ceipal's very own CEO, Samir Panakalapati. Samir is a relentless innovator in the area of advanced technological and business solutions. He is also the founder of firms such as Avani, IIC, ABP, and other successful ventures. To all of our panelists and our moderators, thank you for being here. It's our great pleasure to hear from you, and I know all of our registrants are very excited to hear your thoughts on COVID-19 and its effect on the industry. So to kick off today's webinar, I'm just going to run 2 poll questions to get a feel for where our audience is and how we're responding to the COVID-19 crisis across the world. I'll give the audience about 30 seconds to respond, and then I'll share the results, and then we'll kick off the conversation. So the first polling question today is, when do you believe your business will fully recover from the COVID-19 disruption? So again, I'll give you guys about 30 seconds to vote, and then we'll close the poll and share the results. Ten more seconds here, guys. Just cast your votes really quickly. Okay, 5 more seconds. And wonderful. Okay, So it seems that we're pretty divided evenly. Most of us think that 6 months is a good bet, but 3 months and 1 year come in a close second, and 16% of us are unsure, which is a good and honest answer. Okay, so the final polling question for today. Which area of business has been most affected due to COVID-19? So again, I'll give you guys 30 seconds. Five more seconds here. And wonderful. Okay, so it seems that most of our audience, over half, thought that lack of requirements and jobs from clients was the biggest affector, with cash flow and finances coming in second at 22%. Okay, thank you guys for participating in our poll. It's great to hear where our audience is and how we're responding to COVID-19. We would love to hear what our panelists are thinking of these polling responses. So Samir, as moderator, I'm going to pass it off to you and let's kick off the discussion.
Okay, great. Thanks, Sheila. So I think the poll was very interesting. This is probably our third, I think the third poll. This is probably the fourth one. And I would like to hear from your perspective, and all of you run large businesses, have different perspectives, global consulting streams you have. So really quick. I mean, if you can make it in a minute and have an answer on this, opinion on it. So the first one, we will look into it. What do you? I'll start with Sati. Sati, what do you think of the business's recovery after the COVID-19? Soften out or the result of the disruption. What's your thoughts?
I think definitely, after this recovery, the business is not going to be as usual, right? It is going to be a new normal that will be, starting. So on the technology front, that's what I'm saying. So it's not going to be as usual. Just expect a normal way of working. A different technology which will be scalable, to meet up this remote to working technologies. That is something what we will be keenly looking on as an organization.
Kevin, do you have any comments?
From our perspective, I see it as 3 months. I think that the new normal, as people talk about, will fade to human nature and we will be back to normalcy as before. I don't think there's going to really be a new normal other than in the short term. I think there's a pent-up demand. There are needs that need to be met. There's a lot of demand out there, and I think it's going to move very quickly back to positive business environment.
Thank you. Ashraf?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to put a timeline to it. There's a significant impact to economy, but then organizations and governments have put safety first. And in India, we see that from the infection score, compared to other countries. And we are a consumption economy, so there is a strong belief and confidence that slowly but surely we will have our momentum going. Samir.
Thank you. Mark?
Yeah, I don't think anyone can really be sure, and I think it's going to be different for every staffing firm and the type of mix of business that you have out there. I think the reality is things can return to normal in terms of our revenue and our rec flows and our placements, but I don't think our business will ever be quite the same again as this impacted everybody. I think firms that remain flexible and take more of a recession mentality over the next 3 to 6 months, maybe work on business they wouldn't have worked on in the past, take on rates they wouldn't have taken on in the past. I think those are the firms that are going to come out and they're going to recover quickly because they're going to be able to get business and they're going to be able to stay active and relevant with their clients. I think the firms that kind of sit back and wait for business to come to them and return back to the way it was, I think they're going to struggle because I don't know if we'll ever get back there. And in the US, I don't know if we fully have seen the full economic impact. If this goes on for another 2 or 3 months, who knows what's going to happen. But right now, I agree with Kevin that the there's a lot of pent up demand right now for consultants, and clients are still very willing to hire them.
Thank you. Vijay?
I think I'll stay with Mark. I think it's quite tough to put a number of months to get it recovered, to get it back on recovery mode. But I think organizations that specialize in certain industries would see recoveries in certain forms of industries, like you would see e-commerce, you would see healthcare and pharma in a lot of ways reviving a lot faster, growing much ahead of time compared to industries like travel and hospitality, which would take. So it would depend on what industry the services firm actually focuses on to really arrive at a recovery date. But overall, I think it would be still very unsure to figure out and say it will happen in 3 months or 6 months or 1 year. Businesses are going to treat this as a completely new normal, and how they adapt to that is going to be key for their recovery.
Awesome. Great way to sum up and different perspectives here. And the second question, I think also, I'm sure it's such an important perspective for customers. I mean, for a lot of staffing firms. So, I mean, in your perspective, which of the business has most affected? You know, a lot of people, you saw almost 50% talking about lack of requirements and jobs from the clients. And we hear from Mark, Kevin, Vijay talking about there's a lot of pent up demand. It'll bounce back really quickly. Would love to hear your perspective of those 4 options, and overwhelmingly people pick lack of requirements, jobs from clients. So I would like to hear your perspective. I just try to keep the same the flow. So I start with Sati and see, Sati, you have any comments on that?
Yeah, on the business perspective, I don't think can comment anything here, because you know, on the when you take the technology perspective, I see the business as usual even today. You know, even we are working remotely, I believe the client engagement and the candidate engagement and the employees engagement are going on, you know, as usual without any issues. In fact, much more we have become closer, you know, to the employees and everyone in the field right now, right? So it was most of a physical distancing that we are today in, but then the social distancing, I believe socially we have become closer virtually, you know. So that has actually created, the platform is now very, you know, though it is virtual, but I believe everybody is staying connected, you know. That is something what I see, that nothing has changed in the business, as it's quite as usual, though we are virtual. But I believe on the impact side, I believe you know, Yasha would be the right person to, you know, explain on that.
Awesome, thank you so much. Kevin? Kevin?
Well, I would agree with what you just said. I think it's a very high touch perspective today. I think you have to be in touch with the clients, be in touch with the candidates, be understanding of their needs, not only business needs, but how their families are being impacted, how everybody's being impacted. The hysteria around the globe is pretty high. You know, in the last question I talked about 3 months. I think if we're not back in 3 months, boy, we may never come back, especially in the U.S. Very concerned that if it doesn't get back to normalcy within the next 30 days to start being normal, we're going to have big problems on our hands.
Yeah. Okay.
IT will be the least of the issues.
Yeah. Thank you. Yasha?
Yeah, if I look at the second poll and look at, you know, I think the first one was about jobs and requirements from clients. And I think, you know, everyone has sort of been extremely cautious about, you know, releasing jobs because of physical distancing and safety norms. And a lot of organizations are scrambling as to how do we even go virtual. You know, so for the moment, let's hold back. Let's see how the situation develops. And in staffing organizations, you know, you have people on roles, and they're now all working from home. There are just some who can be productive. Maybe people working in the ITS sector, but people working in manufacturing, they're not productive, and organizations still have to pay. A lot of government advisory is asking organizations to sort of, you know, hold on, do not retrench, do not give any cuts, you know, support your employees. So finances are really getting stretched at this point in time. So that's the current situation. But if I look at it, industries like Vijay also pointed out, you know, I think tourism, say automobiles, you know, airlines, construction, I think they're badly hit, and I think their recovery is going to be, you know, I think it's going to take some time. But if you look at medical devices, supply, personal hygiene, consumption, food processing. All of these, I think, some of them have already started. E-commerce, in a way, has already started hiring. So these are already hiring, or once the lockdown sort of eases out, I think these companies will start hiring. So I think it's a mixed bag. There are certain sectors that will benefit. There are certain sectors that will struggle.
It's a great perspective, and we see that happening too. For one example, I've seen one of our Ceipal customers have a tremendous demand. Their contracts with, especially for the United States, we have almost 22 million people claiming unemployment insurance. And I've seen somebody ramping up their customer support teams to support the state unemployment insurance claims. And I've seen people hiring hundreds of them. Some of them really have a hard time. So very apt. Thank you. Mark?
I agree with a lot of what I said. It's interesting. I think everyone on this panel and certainly everyone that's tuned in right now, we're all talent acquisition experts. But I think over the last month, we've become talent retention experts. We've played a big role in helping our consultants transition from a work on site to a work from home, and really working with our clients to help them buy into that. I know at Softworld, we bought upwards of 200 laptops to distribute to our consultants to allow them to work from home. Because right now, what's good for your business is to keep the consultants you have working. And that was a big move for us. I think diversification in your client base is big right now. I know a lot of people are feeling like there aren't as many recs out there as there used to be. Well, let's remember, 2 months ago, we had more recs than we could fill. The demand for talent was far exceeded the available talent here in the US. And I think we all have standards and best practices we use when we evaluate clients and when we evaluate customers and what type of business we're going to take and what we're going to dedicate our delivery resources to. And just like in any other recessive type atmosphere, sometimes you got to lower that bar and chase business that's not as guaranteed, maybe has a lower success rate, but it still has a success rate. And so the recs are out there. The recs are definitely out there if you are willing to expand your business plan a little bit and maybe work on some things they haven't worked on in the past. Maybe you haven't really worked on a lot of perm recs in the past. Well, those are still out there and clients are still hiring. Maybe you haven't done call center work. Maybe you haven't done administrative work. This is a good time to start looking at other avenues of revenue from a staffing perspective.
Well said, Mark. Thank you. That's a great perspective. Vijay?
Yeah, so I think we operate in a business of employment creation and building employability. And I think, like you earlier mentioned, Samir, the world has a fantastic balance of itself. There will be a large bunch of customers that are not hiring and ramping down. There would be a large bunch of customers that are also increasing their capacity to ramp up. And I think the world always formulates its own balance. I think what's important for the staffing firm to ideate is to look at how are their customers pivoting themselves. Are they moving digital? Are they moving towards the supply chain? Are they vertically integrating themselves? I think that's the question that most staffing firms will need to arrive at to make sure that they align themselves to the trend that's going to come. So, because the world will create that balance. When somebody is not hiring, somebody else will hire.
Right. Thank you, Vijay. And I actually have two questions. I'm going to combine them into one single question. This is, I think, be very interesting perspective from your perspective to get the different ideas. The one thing is, what measures or changes have you implemented to cope up with the pandemic? And what do you think that becomes the mainstream industry practice after the crisis? So what changes have you implemented to cope up with the pandemic? And what would those become the mainstream even after the crisis? And I start with Sati, if you have.
Yeah, so well, Samir, so the industry today is forced to embrace technology, as you all know. So today the survey actually reveals that most of the companies want to explore technology to support remote work, right? So various types of technologies explored are like, video calling platforms, remote onboarding platforms, you have productivity tracking platforms, mobile apps, and so on. But on the other side, the leaders are also, looking at more humane ways to boost productivity, by having more regular huddles at a micro and macro level. But I see, remote working would definitely be an industry norm, irrespective of which industry you are in. And this pushes all tech and product companies to come up with innovative solutions to address the various pain points of remote work. Additionally, this is a time, and chance for all the companies to adopt technology, and businesses would be more agile than ever. So this is what I feel, Samir.
Thank you, Sati. Kevin?
Yeah, I would agree again. The technology, the ATS having to work in a remote silo because my employees are feeling like they're alone right now. And we are doing the multiple huddles. We are doing all of those things. The money we've spent on technology is paid off. We are able to be remote, and we were able to do it in minutes. The challenge there for us, and I think for all of us, is culture. Your culture changes when you go into those silos. How do you maintain that? You have the huddles a couple times a day. You have the regular meetings. You have the regular interface with the people that are working for you, and you try and get a hold of them, and you're trying to impress upon them how important it is for them to be doing the same with the customer, and are the expectations being met of the remote workforce that we're supplying. It's staying on top of those things. It's all, part and parcel. I see some other benefits to that. The traffic has been wonderful. I mean, I haven't waited in a traffic jam in a month. So if that stays the same way, that will be a great thing. So I see that from a number of perspectives. I think the real estate market, commercial real estate, might have a dip. I think we might be doing more remote. I prefer to have them in the office, to have the camaraderie and the teamwork. But who knows if we can ever go back to that? We'll find out soon enough.
Yeah, thank you. That's great. Ashraf?
Well, I'll look at it from two aspects and probably get closer to what my organization did. And traditionally we've been more of a touch and feel organization, so we've not really been much of an organization using work from home. And we had to move to this work from home within 48 hours, from 100% in office to 100% at home. And I think the learnings for us from an employee perspective, I think internally leaders, people managers are connecting with people with just two objectives. One is to ensure that they're engaged, safe, healthy, whether they need any support, connecting with people who are staying alone, and looking at their basic challenges, food, boredom, anxiety, and then ensuring that the business cadence is there. We are trying to have a month-long engagement for all our members to have fun and light moments during the day, because now everyone's in his house, right? So quiz, gamification, e-learning. We instead, in fact, even started a Randstad radio to bring a fun element, right? Then we have a survey. Members have to respond daily to a survey on health issues, the personal travel history, and keeping close touch with anyone who has remotely any symptoms, and providing support. What numbers do you call? Where do you go? Where do you put yourself for quarantine? And also allowing flexibility. We realize that working from home is not like working from office. People need time for kids. People need time for family. So how can they be flexible at their houses, and providing leaves if people are not able to cope up with the additional tasks? Because today all help in India, a lot of help come to work and support. Now none of this help come to our home, so everyone has to do the jobs today. So all of these are completely new for us, and as an organization we've looked to adapt to it, right? On the clients front, I think it's given us an addition, I think a great way to reconnect with clients at this point in time. So we run a program called Randstad Cares, under which we are connecting with clients just to understand how they're doing, how they are coping with the situation, because it's new for them as well. They've not anticipated this together, and then working out on how to run through this period when there is no work, there is no productivity, and yet people have got to be paid. We're trying to share whatever advisories we have from government and how to navigate through that, right? And we are connecting with all our deputies that are spread right across the country, giving them a lot of information on what is the information that they need on COVID. How do they safeguard themselves? What happens if they develop any symptoms? Where do they go for tests? How do they get quarantined? So it a completely new way of working for an organization like us. And I'm sure there are many, many organizations in India that have gone through the same phase. Samir.
Awesome. Thanks, Ashok. Thanks so much. Mark?
A couple of thoughts. I echo the sentiments about technology. Not just to increase communication, but to increase real-time communication. When if there's people out there running large recruiting teams that are spread out across multiple locations, arming your salespeople and your recruiters with the ability to have information in real time as if they were sitting in the cube right next to each other is critical to running your business. If you don't, you're going to waste a lot of time internally. You're going to waste a lot of delivery efforts, and you're going to create a lot of frustration for your staff in what is already a very frustrating situation. So we've been very lucky to have made some technology investments in the last few years in our ATS and things like SharePoint, instant messaging, and Zoom. We luckily had that already. And we've really seen that kind of explode internally, just to get information out there and make sure that people are doing things well. And also with our consultants, it's if you have a lot of consultants working for you, it's hard to pick up the phone and talk to every single one of them. So you need to use technology to stay in constant contact with them. And echo what I heard before, you need to go to them with the plan. There's a lot of anxiety out there right now. It's not just people are worried about getting sick, which they are, and they're worried about their families, which they are. They're worried about their jobs. And they want to know that you know what's going on with their job. They want to know you as their employer, as the staffing company, understands the situation at the client and what the client needs are and what the client is stressed out about, and that you're being very proactive in addressing and communicating that information over to them. Information lowers anxiety. And I think if you're asking what's going to be a kind of a takeaway from this whole thing that's going to kind of carry forward in the industry, I think staffing firms and recruiters are going to get a lot closer to their consultants than they were before. I think that's something we're all going to learn through this experience because we've been in such close touch with them throughout this whole thing.
Yeah, that's a great perspective, Mark. And I've seen that too. A lot of staffing firms that we talk about it, they're much more closer in spite they've been remote to their consultants, their clients, than they were, working under one roof. So that's a great perspective. Vijay, I would like to.
So I think at Quess, I think what we tried and made sure happened is we tried to keep our basics safe. We keep our basics right, and making sure that we don't compromise anything on what we do as a job, what our value systems are, how our relationships with customers are engaged with, how our associates and contractors are dealt with. So we kept straight to the basics. We made sure that was status quo, and that didn't change. And I think the second thing that we try to do, and we continue to engage, is trying to make sure that at no point of time communication is not transparent. We're always making sure that it's transparent, it's clear, we are able to explain what we want to tell them in different forms of communication, whether it's on email or Zoom or any other format or medium, but being clear. So like Mark said, it's more important to tell them what they want to hear and tell them what we are thinking while we're doing this. And I think that was something that's really helped us a lot. And just like Yashab mentioned, it's about how you are sensitive with the customer. No point in just going out to customers and saying, give me all your positions, I'm here, I've got my team ready. It's about understanding what he's going through. Is he able to support you? Is there a way that you could help him do better? And I think that's the way. But in a post-COVID world, I think one thing that's going to be a reality is to work anywhere and work anytime. I think that's going to be reality.
Thank you. It's a great perspective. I just want to sum up. I think, we all agreed for the fact that I think the outcome of this situation, probably we have much more communicative to our consultants and our clients, and also number of surveys we did with our clients. They're all saying that I think their frequency of communication to their staff and to their clients will have tremendously improved in terms of the positive way. I think that we're going to stick around as a new norm, the post-crisis situation. Thank you so much for your perspective. I'm just going to turn into a little bit more personal side of it. I would love to hear your perspective. So, our commute has been tremendously reduced now, right? From kitchen table to our dining table to our home offices. So, how was your commute looks like from kitchen table to the home office, and how do you balance it? We always talk about work-life balance, I mean, it's a home life balance, like a home work balance, or whatever you call it as, right? I would love to know, how are you coping up between your work, home, having the short commute? I'll start with Sati.
Yeah, Samit, that's a wonderful question. In fact, from the technologies, for being in the IT, industry for the past 20 years, I didn't see a difference here because we used to work from home. Work from home is not a new factor for me because, but yes, the staffing companies and like Randstad today, we see a difference actually. That's quite a new normal actually, working from home. But yeah, moving from kitchen and work office, doesn't make any difference because we carry our laptop wherever we go. When we are in meetings, even if we have to take care of our cooking, in fact I have to do cooking as well, cleaning stuffs and everything, so everything is happening parallelly. I don't the work life balance is taken care, even when we are in the midst of a crisis and working from home all the I mean, in fact, like just before we were discussing, it is just an extended hours of working right now, but we enjoy to do that, because we have to complete, we see that everything, all the mails are read and action taken, and we are prepared, for the next day, how to start with. And in fact, in Randstad, we start our day at sometimes 8:30 and even at 9 o'clock, we all connect with our CEO and get to hear, what is the news that we have to listen to and what is the action that we have to take for the rest of the day. And always start with the mission is our rule that we have set up, with us and with the leaders, with all our team members. So start with the vision. Your day will definitely end up in accomplishing the vision, of that day. So I believe, personal life is not impacted, but it's an extended days of work which we are enjoying, I believe.
I see that people talk about this. They're spending more time. They're working more hours now, just being home. Kevin, it looks like you have a huge office out there. I mean, I can see the background, all the coaches, sofas and couch and all the stuff. So how is your commute from kitchen table to home office?
Very short. I walked down a flight of stairs, so it's wonderful. Yeah, I've been working remote for a long time, so for me this is normal. Probably in the office 3 days a week and on the road 2 days a week. So it's always, it seems I'm working more than ever, between all of the different things going on and all the different initiatives going on. There's just never enough hours in the day. And I think the staffing business does that to all of us. I don't think there's ever a time where you feel like you've ended your day and everything's been completed. There's still, when I get up in the morning, there's still 10 things for me to address that I didn't finish yesterday. I try and get those done before 7 a.m. So it's constant. It's an invasive business. It takes over your life, and it hasn't changed. It just seems to be getting busier. So I wish it were busier with more job orders, but it's busier now doing all the things we've discussed this morning. So
that's great. Thank you so much.
Samir,
how is your journey looks like from kitchen table to your home office?
Yeah, so I think though we are all working remote and are physically apart, we seem to be far more connected and more engaged than ever. And that itself is a very interesting aspect for me. And contrary to popular perception, work from home is actually longer than office, but far more productive. And I think we are all at our houses, but not in our homes. That's the way I see it. We see our families move around us, but we don't get to connect as much as we want to with them. And at the same time, personally for me, I've been traveling a lot in this last few years, and this lockdown and COVID has provided me an opportunity to get to know my kids better and be a physical dad they wanted me to be. And I also see a clear segregation of duties now in the house with no maids and no helps coming in. So in short, all egos have been ground to dust. So that's the way I see it.
Awesome, very good, very good. Thank you, Mark. What's your commute looks like from kitchen table to the home office?
Yeah, I think I might be the only person in the U.S. who actually misses their commute. For me, it was it served as a marker in the day. I had an opportunity to mentally prepare for walking in the office and a chance to decompress coming home. And I knew I walked in the house, I'm always on. I'm always looking at email. That's never changed. But there was a difference, and now that line's gone. right? I wake up and I'm at work, and you know, I got 4 kids running around. I don't know if you guys have heard them during the call, and you know, I agree. It's great to spend time with them. It's great to see them, but you know, it's tough balancing the constant demands of our jobs as leaders in the industry, you know, in leaders in the household. And you know, a lot of us here in the U.S. have had to teach ourselves how to become, you know, homeschool teachers, because our kids are doing distant learning now, and that's a surprisingly very stressful thing for 3-4 hours a day. So, because if you don't watch what they're doing, they don't move on to the next subject when they're supposed to. So, but no, I definitely enjoying parts of the. I'm trying to recognize the fact that there's probably never going to be another time in my life where I get to spend this type of time with them and with my family, with my wife, in this type of way. And so, if you know, I try to look at the positive of that. But sure, it's you know, I'm wrapping up week 6 here, working remotely, and I miss my office. I miss my my colleagues and my friends. I miss my coffee machine at work. All that stuff. So you know, I do think that this one last note. It's important to step away, I think, and it's important to take a day off like you would normally would 2 months ago. I think the first 2 or 3 weeks of this was such a fire drill every day. Every single hour, there was a new fire drill. We had a state changing a law. We had a client changing regulations. Everything was an emergency 24/7. I think the first 2 days working from home, I worked straight through the night for 40 hours straight, just trying to keep up with it. Now that things are kind of leveling off, I think for everyone's mental health, I've been encouraging my staff, take time off, take a day off. It's important, you know, if it's a sunny day, go take a day off and clear your head, because we're not getting that opportunity to do that as much anymore.
Thank you. Thanks, Mark. Vijay, how is your commute looks like from the kitchen table to the home office?
I think on a personal note, I'm just absolutely amazed at how the family has actually put up with me more than anything else. I think they've been absolutely supportive, and even more the teams that I work with. I think they've been able to take so much more responsibilities now that I've seen. Maybe there was a lot of presumptions earlier, but I think that's just out of the window. I'm just amazed by how both the family and the teams have taken this so well. And I think personally, I would still, like Mark said, I would still prefer going up and getting that coffee from the coffee machine. I'm missing that though. I have to make my own coffee a bit now. So I think that's taking a little bit of time. But apart from that, I think this is something that's going to continue. And I think we need to know when we need to take our breaks, when we need to take our day off. And it's very important also at the same time to just make sure that you're kind of omnipresent. You're there everywhere. You have to be. And you need to ensure that everyone sees you as someone who's available. And I think that's going to be the key factor. Apart from the fact that when my 4-year-old son decides to join my strategy meeting, now that's a different ballgame altogether.
It's great perspective, and we hear from all of you, and through a few polls we have conducted. I think everybody talks about, I think their normal productive hours are much longer than they were working from office, the formal office structure. But also we have seen a lot of people expressing a bit of frustration, or maybe just a yeah, you know, just stress, just being staying in home all the time and working from home. So, you know, just for an example, I think we were talking about, I was talking to one of our the development lead. They have been assigned a piece of work. Normally, you know, they know that the kind of piece of work be done takes a week's time, and they're coming back, you know, in 2 days, you know, I'm done. Can we assign this to the testing team? So that's the pleasantly, you know, because it's just working long hours, because they just don't want to know what else to do. So, but I think at the same time, when topics coming around, okay, you know, we might open up offices for 25% of staff, there were actually a queue line that I want to come back to office and work, and put me into that 25% member team to come back to work. So it's just an interesting perspective, interesting world we are into it. Thanks, gentlemen. I have one a last question to ask you. I think what we would like to talk about, you know, I think some of you already have mentioned about it, and it's good to know what are the ways in which you personally or your organization help the clients to cope up with this COVID. You know, we talk about our perspective and how did your organization or your leadership help your clients to cope up with this the COVID-19 situation or even post crisis situation? I'll start this, Sati.
Yeah, so from the technology perspective, I can see like we have already equipped with the tools which we consider as very important for the clients and the candidates, and not the candidates and the employees who are placed at different client places. So I think those tools are actually helping this crisis situation, and one of my LOBs actually is actually using those tool for their onboarding their employees and so on. So the this pandemic has actually taught me a lesson from the technology perspective that the development of tools and technology and the infrastructure which has to support the alternative types of working is very essential. That as CIO, from the technology, we have to concentrate on that kind of infrastructure to be readily available, where we'll be always equipped with tools working virtually. That's most important is what I'm looking at. And this vast remote work experiment is also a great opportunity to prepare for the future. Right. So when we had in technology automation popped up, we have expanded the knowledge workers to work on automation. And then the preferences for the youngsters at that point on time was why don't we work from home, why don't you give us work from home options? So when automation and technology can work like that, I think in staffing companies also, only the tools that we are developing which can help them to work virtually in any situation, I think that should be really looked after. And for all the staffing business, I believe the better client and candidate engagement are more important, and the focus should be more on that. And I think as Randstad, we are focusing on that with regular cadences, and we have enabled all the virtual platforms to engage with our clients and our candidates and our employees, and all the LOB leaders are using it extensively, and they are connected closer than ever. That's what I could see.
Thank you. Kevin? Thank you. Kevin?
So I would say the technology has been a huge blessing for us. I mean, we had just moved last December, so we had completely redone our infrastructure. And so for our internal people to work from home, it was always set up that way. So there was no, we didn't miss a lick on that. It was just right away we were there. And as far as the customers are concerned, since we do mostly subject matter experts in the IT field, most of our customers had their employees already, our employees set up to work from home when they needed it. And now that they needed it, they had to expand that. And as Mark said earlier, it was probably a 2-day fire drill of getting all the permissions and everything squared away and everything up and running, but pretty fast. And it was a fire drill. And we offer a supply technology if they need, laptops or any of that. We'll do all of those things and, do whatever we can to help the situation. I mean, the pandemic is uncharted waters for all of us. It's very stressful if you let it get that way. With some people, I see it spiraling out of control. With other people, they're handling it a little better. But it's different. It's got everybody with a new perspective on life, and the technology has been a huge help. That's what I would say. So,
thank you, Ashok.
Yeah, adding to what Satish said, I think Randstad globally has taken the lead, and along with Adecco and Manpower, they have approached governments and organizations on how do we get people safely back to work. Now that restrictions and lockdowns are easing right across the globe in many of the countries, because the rules have changed now, and now we have a new norm of physical distancing, right? Something that's completely new. If you look at some of the procedures that are being put in place in India at airports or at railway stations, you'll be amazed to see a completely new way of working or lining up for people. So, as we get back to work gradually, some of the areas that I think we need to look at, and what we are in touch with our organizations that we work for would be, how do we ensure that we have workers who come to work volunteering on whether they're in contact with the virus, which is a self-assessment. How do we ensure that they don't commute through public transport and they use their own commute, right? Safety at the workplace. Greetings have changed now. There is no, you're not touching one another. So namaste has become the preferred way of greeting. Washrooms, say office or work areas, cafeterias, pantries. I think, how do you use them? Sitting in all of these places, meetings and discussion rooms, completely changing in new norms. I think medical centers, I think organizations probably never thought of it. Now I think it's very much required, a process to flow if there is any inspection that is reported, and I think lots and loads of communication to people as they come back to work. And it's just started in India. So, I think too early to say. Very few, very select organizations have been allowed to, start work, and that too with a very, very reduced staff, anywhere between 10 to 30% of staff coming back. But I think these are things that most organizations are now looking at, physical distancing in the workplace and information and communication. So I think that's a completely new normal for all of us. Samir.
Okay, thanks, Ashok. Mark?
I think the best thing you can really do for clients right now, and what we've really focused on, is take care of your consultants. They say all politics are local, right? And all employees mean something to these clients, to the managers that you're supporting. Let them know what you're doing. Let them know that you're talking to the consultants. Let them know that your consultants are okay, and that they've transitioned to home, or they've gotten the PPE that they need, that you're providing. I think that we're all dealing with the same types of questions about not just working consultants, but candidates that we're submitting to new positions. Answer the questions for the clients before they even ask them. Get a travel history from everyone that you're submitting. Go through those COVID-19 symptom checklists when you're presenting someone to a client. If the client does require work on site, make sure you're being thorough and that the candidate you're presenting understands that. I think our job right now, we're a service industry. We need to make the lives of our clients easier, not harder. Now's not the time to be trying to slip resumes in or candidates in. Now's the time to do the very best you can do as a talent acquisition firm. And that's how you're going to help your clients, because it's one less thing they have to worry about, right? We're not in a complicated business. So we just really need to focus on our best practices and what we do as recruiters and salespeople and staffing firms, and just do it really, really well. And our clients will recognize that.
Thank you. That's a great perspective. Vijay?
So I think the first thing that we did at Quess, when you're India's largest private employer, the first thing that you'll need to do is keep the hygiene ready. So we make sure that over 1 million pay records was payrolled properly, and from employees all working from home, which we had never done before. And I think once you sanitize the very basics, your employers, the clients are always happy. You make sure that that's covered. And I think the second part is also, I think, a little bit on what Sadi mentioned. How do you take a repetitive task? How do you take an ongoing platform to create and digitize and help the customer achieve more with less? So I think as you involve technology both from the client side as well as, like Mark mentioned, on with the consultant side, how do you ensure that you make their life easier by communicating through easier channels, by sharing information, and also making sure that they get to hear you either ways. And I think last but not the least, I think at Quess, what we've also done over and above what we do for our clients and consultants is also what we do for the community. So at the end of the day, you should be responsible for who you service around you. And I think we have given free meals, we've taken care of providing the PPE equipment, and gone out of the way to also make sure, and that eventually helps both your clients and your consultants, because that goodwill always serves back.
Well, that's a great perspective. And in fact, we after listening all of you and the few surveys we have done across the channels, definitely we have the team that are equipped to perform, embrace these new changes, along with the the software platforms that helps to be more connected to the consultant, more connected to the clients, and within among the teams. And I think I would like to take up 2 minutes of your time and quickly run through what Ceipal has been doing to support its clients and to their clients. And some of the tech platforms we brought in, especially to help in this situation. So I would like to showcase just a really 3 slides, really quick. Probably will take about 2 minutes. Sheila, if you can move to the next one. So based on our surveys, we have seen, especially in our view, as we talk about, different industries have different needs because of the current situation scenarios. But I think it's still finding the talent, right time at right price, I think is a key. So we look into that. What's the sourcing, screening, and placements? We have seen consistently people getting, have the better systems in place really helps. So, we look into it. How do we find, how fast can we source the candidates, how fast we can evaluate the candidates, and then how recruiters can get the number of qualified candidates much faster than without a technology. Like for a perspective, we've surveyed over hundreds of Ceipal clients, and in their average candidates, they've identified qualified candidates 28 to 7 with the technology and without having a technology, or not very sophisticated tools that they have it. And also the number of submissions, which is basically you're helping clients to have more options to pick the best candidates and stuff. And you have throwing 1 or 2, which you are helping them more to find the better candidates. So there are ways, and the tools and technologies can help our customers and our businesses to find the best talent in the market. Sheila, next one. And we saw that the sourcing. And the next one we talk about, we all talk about, right? Like how to build a relationship with the clients, how to build relationship with the consultants, and also the prospects. And again, there are a lot of things we're looking into it, right? And now with all this new norm of social distancing, can we have video interviews? We have chat enabled. Do we have SMS messaging enabled? And we have all different kinds of things. Do you have a tools that all can enable these communication channels in the system right there? Somebody responds to you, to your text message, it stays there. Somebody, you could just click off an icon, you could initiate the video conferencing. Those are kind of things in that you could able to see how many times have you reached out to the candidates, how many times you reached out to the customer, and what was the conversation between. At times we do have multiple people engaged, either candidate or the consultants or the client, and do we have all the information that's been stored in the system? So we have recognized that, and we strengthen the system to accommodate that kind of communication channels, the communication center in the system. And you would see that in how important, especially the crisis and the post-crisis, I think is going to be a new norm for the foreseeable future, probably in forever. Sheila, next one. And the last one, again, remote work support, agility, digital transformation, right? I mean, we talk about, and subjectively, we know, I think people are spending more time because you send an email at 9 p.m. People are responding even then late nights. But how do we measure the productivity? I think the one question that people did raise the question, how do I know how my teams are productive and how much they're spending time? But if you have a reporting structure, you have tools that actually measures the productivity, it could be a number of submissions to the hours they've spent on it, the number of calls they made, whatever the parameters we set in, do we have the software productivity in the tools that have some kind of measurement that we can take a look into it and measure it? I think that's also important. Our tools and systems to equip to handle such reports that you can able to continue to measure and also monitor some of those things. So just to give you a quick chart, how we're constantly evolving and also addressing the current crisis and the future, and I think probably becomes a new norm forever in the future. So this is something that we wanted to bring it up to our audience here and to all of you. That's pretty much I have. Sheila, that's all I have it. I want to thank you for everyone for it's a great, wonderful opportunity for me to talk to every one of you And I know, except Satya, I'm meeting every one of you for the first time. It's a great perspective. I think if you're okay, we might do a short write-up on all the discussions we have. We'll share with everyone. So we have what we talk about. We're going to publish our discussions, our comments, in a generic terms. So that you go, hey, this is what the industry is talking about. We will also share all of our poll in all of that in a structured format, so that what the industry is thinking about it. And I think with this, I will pass this to Sheila. You take it from there.
Hello, thank you everyone. Great discussion. Really great to hear from all of you. So we have had a very active Q&A section. So we have lots of questions for everyone. To all attendees, if we don't get to your question, we are going to try to keep this to about 5 minutes. If we don't get to your question, please reach out to us. Ceipal will definitely respond to what you have to say. But for now, we're going to throw some questions at our panelists. So our first question reads, Dear speakers, the government has imposed Disaster Management Act as a mandate to pay employees. How about small recruiting companies who don't have work and can't afford to pay post-April? What suggestions do you have?
It's for anybody to pick up.
So I can add in a few points. So that's absolutely correct. These are times that are challenging, and I think smaller firms will see that impact of government not asking people to lay off. I think you could do 2 or 3 things. There's one, of course, reach out to your local state governments to find out if there are subsidies that can help you provide with temporary loans and working capital arrangements that will help you get through this period. The second option is to also look at options of variability, look at options of employment, which can include a higher amount of variability, which brings down your cost of capital. And I think what you could also do is work out arrangements of reduction in pay, which in some states are allowed. So again, I speak with a specific focus on the Indian market per se. It might be different in different countries.
That's great, thank you. If no one else wants to hop on, we have another question here. Should firms with expansion plans go ahead as is, or should we rethink the expansion scale or delay it by 3 to 6 months and resume after this crisis has settled? So what would be the development plan going forward? So again, anyone can pick this up.
That's a tricky one, right? Because it's if it was a good idea 2 months ago, it's probably still a good idea. And I think it's important that we remember that the fundamentals of this crisis are not economic, they're not financial. At least in the US, the core of the workforce and economy are very sound and very good right now. And now is actually a very good time to move your business forward. It's a good time to maybe even hire some people that you may not have been able to hire a few months ago. If you have a plan for a practice that you really believe in, maybe you don't go all in right now, but I wouldn't pause it. I keep moving forward. I keep exploring it, so when this is over, you're able to respond very quickly to it.
Yeah, maybe I'll just add to Mark. I think as long as organizations are able to sort their way out the physical distancing that's now prevalent, I think the talent is there, and people are willing to be hired. People are willing to work. As long as we sort out the virtual mode of maybe interviewing, the onboarding that we can do virtually, and all of these, and getting people work from home, giving them the support and infrastructure, I think people are ready to work. There is enough talent. So someone wanting to hire, I think, should not shelve the plans.
Okay, great. Good, nice and forward-looking. So we have one more question here. With fewer industries hiring while other industries are recovering, the competition is surely going to increase among staffing agencies. Less demand, more supply versus staffing agencies targeting the same clients and industries. So what are some marketing strategies that the panelists can suggest to help differentiate ourselves from the competition?
I'd just like to say, has it been different before? We still had the same competition. We still had the same focus. I don't think so that's changed personally. But I think what you could do as a marketing strategy is there's a lot of digital marketing options available at this point of time. I think a lot of people are at home, a lot of people are online. So I think using digital marketing and arriving at spends around that, I think would definitely help. Getting content out in different forms, whether it's an email or whether it's a messaging system, getting content out to your customers and to prospective players, customers is going to be a very key aspect as we move forward. I think it's all about capturing mind share at this point of time and not just plain imagery.
Okay.
I agree. So,
Yeah,
so
Mark, go ahead.
I agree with that, and a couple of other thoughts. After every, during the housing crisis of 08, the .NET bubble of 2002, the mini recession of 2004, the staffing industry always comes out bigger on the other side of these events, right? Clients always get a little bit nervous about having so much permanent in-house staff. They want more flexibility. Every time there's a crisis, they want to be able to ramp up and ramp down. So the staffing firm as a whole, industry as a whole, always grows through these things, right? It's usually rough for a little while, but usually within a year or two, the STEM, science, technology, IT, life sciences, those come back fairly quickly, and they usually come back bigger than they were before. So I think the demand's going to be there because there was still such a at least in the U.S., such a massive talent shortage. And the other thing that happens during these types of crises is there's a lot of movement among consultants and among clients. People switch companies a lot, coming out of these types of things. They get nervous. They want new opportunities. So those relationships that you've spent your career building, you need to follow those. Right? You need to follow those where they go. A lot of people are going to be switching companies, and how you treat them right now and how good of a job you do for them right now is going to really drive your marketing into the future as they start to expand into different companies and you chase that business as well.
Okay, wonderful. With that, I think that we have to close our Q&A. Just so all of our attendees know and our panelists, we had over 500 registrants for this webinar. So if we did not get to your question, our sincere apologies. Again, please do reach out to us. We are happy to have your feedback and answer any questions we can. And with that, Samir, I will pass it over to you for closing remarks, and then we'll wrap up for the day.
Thanks, Sheila. Thanks so much, everybody. Again, as I mentioned to all of you, we will share our, the poll information, the summary of our conversations, and we'll come up with a short article and we'll share with all of you. And we are hosting a series of webinars. We will reach out to you. Thank you for your time. I think it's a great way to give back to the smaller, to the industry in the smaller staffing firms. And I think your perspective is big because every one of you here representing thousands of consultants, hundreds of millions of dollars, and billions of dollars that, companies have global presence here. I think your perspective is a big deal, and thank you for all of your time being here and sharing your thoughts. And I hope everyone have a happy and healthy and safe commutes between your kitchen tables to your home offices. Hopefully, we will get back to our real offices soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.